Is planning your content creation for 90 days really possible? I know right now you might be thinking, absolutely not. It is a goal, it is an aspiration, but I'm barely doing 30 days. I am hoping that with today's video, we are going to remove the overwhelm, remove the mystery, and talk about the system to have in place to plan out your content for 90 days. Welcome back to the BRANDMERRY channel. I am Michelle Knight, founder and CEO of BRANDMERRY.com, and I am very excited to share today's episode with you. This question comes up a lot from my free community all the way to my paying clients who are constantly like, how the heck do you create content? And it all starts with a plan. And this video is perfect timing. At the time of the release, when you're watching it, hopefully, I will be in Greece. And I got this idea in June of 2021 that I really wanted to test my willpower. I wanted to see how powerful my planning really was. And I wanted to batch create 90 days worth of content within 2-week period so that I could thoroughly enjoy myself in Greece. Not to mention Wi-Fi, very unreliable, and I didn't want to deal with that. I learned a lot living in an RV. So I am in the middle of creating 90 days worth of content, and I'm not recommending that that's where you start. In no way am I recommending that you just start planning and creating 90 days worth of content right out of the gate. But I want to share with you how I'm able to do it. And it's the exact same system that I've used to create content every week to where I'll have a 90-day plan, but every Monday I'm creating that weekly content, to when I started batching 30 days worth of content in advance, where I would spend the week, a month before to actually record and create the content for the next month, to where I am today, doing 90 days worth of content. It all comes back to this plan and this system, which is so important. So I'm going to break that down for you step by step so you can use it to get your content out into the world. Step number 1 is to create your repurposing plan. Now, if you didn't already know this about us over here at BRANDMERRY, we are big fans of repurposing. It has also floated around with my clients that I should change my name to Repurposing Queen because I'm so obsessed with it. And this need for repurposing came out of building my business while working a 9-to-5, being at home with my son, and then, trying to be this whole entrepreneur thing, that I realized I could not create fresh content every single day, but I did want to show up every single day. So that really introduced me to the art of repurposing, something I talk about in depth in this video right here, where I actually break down the entire planning process of your repurposing workflow. I'm not going to go into that whole thing in this video. Again, watch this video if you don't know what I'm talking about. But step 1 is really understanding your custom repurposing plan. And what I mean by that is, what is your core piece of content? You need to know this in order to plan out 90 days worth of content. So for instance, for a really long time, my core piece of content was a live video that I did on Facebook and Instagram. So I would go live every Monday. I would take that content, I would turn it into a blog post, I would push that out on Pinterest, I would share it in my Insta stories, I would create an IGTV, and then I would create various posts throughout the week that talked about the same topic that I talked about on Monday. That's kind of the art of repurposing. You've got a core piece, think of it like a web and all these other platforms coming out of that. As my business grew, I started creating pre-recorded content that we could do 30 days in advance. We would repurpose that, transcribe that into a blog post, put it out on Instagram, put it out on Facebook, put it out on Pinterest, all the things, to where we are today. I've really mastered the art of repurposing that I now have 2 core pieces of content. I have a weekly YouTube video and I have a podcast, both completely different content ideas. So I have 2 new ideas every single week for 90 days. That's a lot. I get it. You do not have to start there. I recommend just starting with 1. So when you really think about it, all you're planning for 90 days is 1 idea every week. Doesn't that make it a lot less overwhelming than thinking about it every 7 days? I know it does for me. So the first thing you want to do is determine what your custom repurposing plan looks like. Again, watch this video, okay? Because that's going to go through the entire process. Then step 2 is a brain dump of sorts. It's really a brainstorming session that happens every 90 days where you are just dumping ideas for content creation. We're not going to stop here. There's way more strategy involved, but you've got to get the juices flowing. So at this stage, what I recommend is having a very simple spreadsheet. I'm going to show you mine in just a few minutes, where you're just listing out all the different ideas that you can create for your core piece of content. Now, you want to start to think about launches. Is there anything that you're going to be promoting within the next 90 days? Is there something new that you're going to be offering? You want to think about any events that are coming up, whether that's within your own business or outside of your business. Think holidays, think Black Friday, think end of the year sales, those different things. You also want to start to think about some of the top questions your audience has really been asking you. So if there's something you've noticed that people are asking you over and over and over again, it's probably time to deliver some information around that. So you want to use this as a brain dump. This is also really helpful if you want to conduct some fresh market research, which I talked about last week in this video right here, where you can take some fresh market research that you've done and you can put that into your spreadsheet. So you're not thinking too analytical about this process. You're just getting the information out there and you're letting the juices flow. At this stage, I also recommend thinking of any content that you could use from live events that you've done. Maybe you did a podcast interview and you haven't shared that out with your community. Think of ways that you could repurpose content that you haven't repurposed. This is really going to help you so it doesn't feel like you're constantly creating fresh content. In fact, for my podcast, the BRANDMERRY podcast, I repurpose live videos that I do on Instagram. So I release those recordings weeks later on my podcast. And that really helps me because I don't have to just constantly be creating fresh content. And then the final step, if you haven't done this already, is to put that information on a spreadsheet with your dates. And if you want to, you can absolutely start putting this in a task management software. I personally like to organize my entire spreadsheet before I add it to the task manager because it just saves a lot of time back and forth. And the task management software that we love to use is called ClickUp. And I'm going to show you behind the scenes of that. In fact, let's jump in and look at my computer right now. Welcome to my computer screen. So at this stage, we are focused on getting the information inside of the spreadsheet. So you'll see that I have a very simple spreadsheet here. It's nothing super fancy, but I want to share with you just kind of how I have it set up. So at the bottom, you'll see that I have YouTube and blog. As I mentioned before, I have 2 core pieces of content. So I have YouTube and podcast, both separate pieces of content created every single week. You probably won't have these additional tabs at the bottom. You'll just have one, but this is an option for you if you find that you're at a place where you want to create multiple blog posts every single week. So the first thing that I have are the release dates. So my YouTube, well, this is the podcast specifically. The podcast is released every Thursday. Our YouTube videos are released every single Monday. So I have very simple statuses here. This is, again, just for my end. I'm the main person who uses this spreadsheet. Once everything feels final to me, that's when I upload it or add the information to ClickUp. So we're at this next stage, which is just organizing your spreadsheet. So we've got the release date. We have statuses, drop down. Again, I just have very, very simple things here. Research, ready for notes, recording, editing, workflow initiated, and posted. Workflow initiated just means that we've inputted it into ClickUp and it's started its process. Then I have the podcast title once it's been final. So as I'm adding information in here, this might look a little messier. That's fine. But at this stage, your goal is to organize it based on release date. So start to identify, if you think this podcast will go really well with this episode or this YouTube video will feed into this YouTube video, start to organize that by date. So you have a really, really clear picture on what that looks like. Then this is the big piece of the puzzle. This is the piece of the puzzle that people forget about. I recommend conducting your SEO research at this stage. A lot of people will teach you to wait till you've recorded the content, wait until the blog is ready, and then figure out your SEO. I recommend figuring it out right at the beginning. That's going to help you finalize titles, which is going to play a role, in formatting your blog. It's going to play a role in your thumbnails. It's going to play a role in everything. So it'll allow you to finalize your title based on SEO. And it's going to allow you to understand what keywords are going to help you, which will also help you in formatting your content as well. So what I mean by SEO research is using the two platforms that I preferably like to use are called Ubersuggest. I've talked about it multiple times on this channel. You can use a paid version of that, which is what I use, or you can do a few free searches every single day. So you'd have to be really strategic in that week when you're planning it out. Ubersuggest is a fantastic platform that will allow you to type in, the main content idea and then determine, hey, what is the search volume? Is it really difficult for me to rank for that? You'll see that I have two columns here for that. I don't use these in my business because for the podcast and the blog specifically, because I've been doing this enough that I know. But a lot of my clients love to put in, how much is the search volume? What's the SEO difficulty when they're in that initial stage of, modifying their title, if you will. So there are tabs for that. I unhid these for you so that you could see them in the spreadsheet. But you're going to want to do this research to find out, are people actually searching for this? And you want to play with your title quite a bit. So you'll see here, I have a podcast title, Identifying Your Brand Values. This is a podcast that's already been posted. It's something my audience asks a lot about. For podcast titles, I like to keep the title shorter. But you'll see after I did my SEO research, the title for my blog was What Are Brand Values and Why Are They Important in Personal Branding? Because by doing my SEO research, I was able to find that this was a great combo. What are brand values was a top question that people are asking on Google. And then the keywords of personal branding are ones that I'm always wanting to rank for. So I made a long tail keyword. So you'll see that my podcast episode for this one, should you jump on the hot new platform, right? Which is something that my warm audience would respond to. But when I'm thinking about attracting a cold audience with the same piece of content, I really have to focus on SEO. So 3 questions to ask yourself before jumping on a new social media platform. All right. So you'll see how doing the SEO research is incredibly helpful. So we know what the podcast titles are going to be. We also know what the blog title is going to be. And then I also write my SEO description based on the keywords. So sometimes I'll write those main keywords like mission versus purpose statement, mission-driven brand. I'll put those in this section here. You'll see I've done them for some, but I have them for others. Sometimes I'll just immediately go and write the SEO description. So for this one, let's go back to the brand values one. We did clear brand values are essential as an online brand in 2021 and beyond. Head over to the blog to learn more about what brand values are important and how to find yours. So your SEO description is just more enticing. If someone saw this title on Google, what could you say to them that would get them to click through on your blog? So this research is so important because if you're going to take all the time and the energy to create your content, which takes time and energy, you want to make sure that people are actually finding it. So again, I use Ubersuggest primarily for my SEO research. Another tool is called Keywords Everywhere. I've talked about that on the platform before. That's another helpful tool. And if you're doing your content on YouTube, the tool that I also love to use is called TubeBuddy. So for podcasting, actually, let's hop back. For podcasting specifically, I won't do a ton of SEO research for the podcast title. That's for my warm audience. It's just more enticing. I will use Ubersuggest to finalize the blog title. For YouTube, I will finalize the YouTube title based on the research that I find on TubeBuddy. So TubeBuddy is just a tool that you can use that integrates with your YouTube search engine and will help you figure out what you're most likely to rank for, based on search volume and competition. And so you go through and you play with it quite a bit. For instance, this 6-month planning step-by-step, I think originally, my title was like how to plan 6 months in your business, but it was not giving me a great score. So I played around with it and ended up with 6-month planning, step-by-step business calendar, right? So we don't know what we don't know. Let the data tell you what you should name your content. So that's why it's important to brain dump all your stuff into a spreadsheet and then go through each of these and finalize the title. Most of the titles that we create for YouTube, we keep pretty consistent for the blog. You'll see this one, how to get new clients in your service-based business, was great for YouTube. And we changed it to 6 tips for finding new clients online for the blog. So same content, just different title based on the data. So this stage is going to take you a little bit of time in the beginning, but it is 100% worth it because you're putting the pieces in place to make sure that your content is actually discovered. People are finding it. I didn't do this in the beginning, and I got lucky with a couple pieces of content that still drive traffic to my website. It's amazing, and it's because of the SEO. So now we do it all of the time. So again, at this stage, you want to finalize your spreadsheet and finalize your dates, finalize your titles, finalize your SEO keywords, your descriptions, your titles for your blog, have it all done. Okay, it's all about the batch scheduling. Once you've finished the spreadsheet, then we can move into the next step. So I'm going to show you a look at our weekly workflow inside of ClickUp. Again, ClickUp is the task management software that we prefer to use over here. You could also use something like Asana, another very, very popular one with entrepreneurs. So with the weekly workflow, I obviously have a team. So you'll see that there are a lot of different things that I can assign to my team. In the beginning, I too was doing this by myself. And I have just found that organizing it in a weekly workflow is incredibly helpful for making sure that things are moving along. So as I've mentioned before, we are repeating our workflow every week. Nothing is changing. So whether you're creating new content every week based on your 90 days of planned content, or you're batching it all together, what we're doing for each piece of content stays the same. So inside of ClickUp, we've created some automations and some templates that we can use. What I do is I idea dump all of the final titles in here. So I'll just pull directly from my spreadsheet, put them all in here as a new task. Then I go through and I pull them either into YouTube or podcast, depending on what they are. Once I do that, here, I'll give you an example. Hopefully this works. So let's say episode test. So I've added this in here as an idea dump. I would do this for each of the pieces of content that I'm going to create. Once I've done that, then I'll pull it to its corresponding piece. So let's just pull this one to podcast. My automation will start pulling in the checklist that I have designed, and it will also pull in all of our notes and different things like that. So I can open up this episode test. Sometimes it takes a minute. Okay, it worked. Yay. And you'll see that it automatically added the tag podcast, and it added in this main description box here. So for every podcast, we have the master spreadsheet, which links to the spreadsheet I just showed you. Once I have it recorded, I'll link it to the episode folder. We keep that all in Google Drive. So if it's a podcast, it's a native audio file. If it's a YouTube video, it's a video and audio file. I'll fill in the release date, I'll fill in the podcast title, I'll fill in the blog title. So I just pull that information over from the spreadsheet. You don't have to. I like to keep all of my stuff in one area if I need to go back and check it, if I'm writing an email or promo post or something like that. Below that, you'll see I put special links. So if there's something that I mention, a CTA inside of that video, I put that there. And then my script notes. So as I'm getting ready to record, I'll come in and add some notes in there. I will assign it to myself if it's my turn to do the task, which it usually is. I have to create it, and I'll add a due date in here as well. Then when you scroll down, you can see that we already have the weekly workflow set up. So we've got podcast edited, uploaded to Drive, clip pull for social media. My husband, who's the multimedia manager, shout out to you, boo. He does these 2 tasks. Then once those are completed, then we move into transcribing the podcast, formatting it for the blog, scheduling it, scheduling the podcast, and then scheduling the blog for release. Delana, our operations manager, takes care of that. I did it for myself for years. Then we move into weekly promotion. And so Kinsey, who's on our team, who does our graphics, she will pull the clip and make a headliner for social media. And then she'll look at the transcript and she'll make 2 carousel graphics for the week. Because every week we're posting the podcast on Insta stories, and we're posting 2 kind of repurposed pieces of content, right? Like I said, a huge fan of repurposing. Make sure you watch that video. And then I am sending out an email on Thursday when the new podcast is released. So everything is ready to go. At the planning stage, I want to make sure this top area is filled out. And then once that feels good, then I will just change the status to research and notes. If I need to do anything else, write notes for myself. And then I will move the status to recording. Once it's recorded, we move it to editing. So it's all bins project. Then we move it ready for the blog. That is when Delana and Kenzie work together. I put any finalizations on there. And then once it has been scheduled, we move it into the scheduled. After it's been posted, it moves to complete. So that's a look at the podcast one. Let's take a look at the YouTube one, just so you can see the different workflows depending on what your core piece of content is. So I'm just going to pull up the YouTube workflow template here. So once it gets moved here, it gets the YouTube tab. Obviously, this would be the name of the episode, a link to the spreadsheet, and then a link to the videos. Then we have our SEO stuff for YouTube. Again, YouTube is a completely different beast. There's a lot more SEO research that needs to go into YouTube videos with tags, your title, writing your description. And so I will come in and fill these pieces out once it's recorded. I will pull the tags from TubeBuddy, finalize the title, which I can pull from the spreadsheet, and then write my description. And then I'm sharing similar links every single week in my YouTube description. So these just auto-populate. We've got some freebies. We've got my program. Any resources I mention in the video, I'll link here. So like below this description, you'll see Uber Suggest and Keywords Everywhere and TubeBuddy. We've got our, subscribe. We've got our stay in touch. All these key things that are just used for every video. And then if you scroll down, you'll see our subtask or our checklist is a little different. So for YouTube, we've got the videos edited and uploaded and the thumbnails been created. Again, Ben is working on those pieces. Then Delana transcribes the video and formats it for the blog. We schedule the video for release. We create a Pinterest graphic for the blog, get that ready up for the blog. We schedule the blog for release, weekly promotion, and then I send an email on Monday to my list. So very, very similar pieces, but there are a few extra pieces in place like the thumbnail. Once I am ready to change the status, I go in, I research, recording, editing, so on and so forth. So the goal here is once you've got the information finalized in your content spreadsheet, and remember, we're just focused on planning right now. I don't want you to get too far ahead where you're like stressed out about like, how are you going to record it and all of that. You don't have to do that all at one time. You can do that weekly. You can say, I'm going to record 3 videos every Thursday, whatever works for you. But you've got a plan in place. You know what you're working on. Move it to your task manager. Again, I recommend ClickUp and get your core information in here. You can also save things. So you can create one that says YouTube workflow template. And then you can hit these little dots here, go to Template Center, and then choose Save as Template. And then that is going to save that template for you that you can then put on every single one. Saves you a ton of time. And again, then we just move it through the workflow. So once it is scheduled, once it's ready for research and notes, it goes here. Once I'm recording it, you can see we're working on a lot of recording right now. Then once it's in editing, moves to ready for the blog, once it's scheduled, and then once it's completed. And like this one just posted yesterday, so I'm going to go in today and I'm going to move that over to completed. So we know as a team, that one is ready to go. All the social's been scheduled, everything. So this is just a look at the planning and the organizing. And I just got to tell you, being in it where I'm bulking 90 days worth of content, it is absolutely amazing and will save you so much time and energy. Incredibly helpful, right? Like when you have a system in place, it just makes it that much easier. Now, the first time that you do this, the process might take a little bit longer. Maybe you're not 5 years into your business and know your ideal customer like the back of your hand, right? Maybe you're just starting out. You're going to get in a rhythm. It's going to start saving you time. But I promise you, if you get into the habit of planning this out 90 days at a time, it's actually going to save you time and energy. If you're trying to come up with topic ideas every single week, you're going to find that you're wasting time. Do all of your research, put it all into a spreadsheet, add it to your task management, and then the final piece of the puzzle is actually scheduling your time when you're going to create the content. Now, again, we're focused on planning content right now. Again, I'm not recommending that you sit down and record all your videos in 1 week. That might be a far away dream for you, but at least get it on your calendar. Tell yourself and your Google Calendar, when you're going to record those podcasts. When are you going to record those videos? When are you going to write those blogs? Again, when I first started, I did this every Monday. So I knew what I was talking about for 90 days. And then every Monday I would sit down and I would either write a blog, or I would record my video, or I would go live, whatever my core content was at the time. And then I would transcribe and get it on the blog and all those different things. And I just refined that practice week after week. Then I moved into batch recording for 30 days. Then I moved into 90 days. And that became a lot easier when I had a team and we used platforms like rev.com to transcribe. I dive into so much more about repurposing in this video. I mean, I know I've told you like 6 times to watch it, but if you haven't, you gotta watch it. All of this will make sense when you do. So I hope that this video was incredibly helpful for you. As I've mentioned, I'm in the process of recording 90 days worth of content for the first time. And I'm also doing something else for the first time, and that is recording my process in what many people refer to as a vlog. I don't know if I ever thought I was gonna record a vlog. People have asked me to do it multiple times. I just didn't want to do it. But I was like, what better way to show you if this actually works, right? If I actually can record 90 days worth of content, then by taking you through the process. So next week on my YouTube channel, I'm going to share my first ever vlog for BRANDMERRY, where I'm showing you behind the scenes on how I actually recorded and created and got 90 days worth of content scheduled before I hopped a plane to Greece. So make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss that video, which will be released Monday at 4 p.m. Central Time. If this was incredibly helpful for you, hit that like button, give it a good thumbs up, and comment below a shift that you are going to make in your content creation plan, or just a bunch of emojis on how excited you are that you finally have a system in place. I will see you next week for that vlog video, and in the meantime, I recommend that you catch my free training all about mastering your marketing, where I'm teaching you how to show up, build your community, and make sales without relying on social media. You can go to brandmerry.com/marketing to watch that free training. I'll see you next week. Have an amazing, amazing rest of your week. And cheers. It's a fake cheers. Here's to you mapping out 90 days worth of content.